Hey everyone, it is Dr. Leith again. I'm going to go over validity today as we continue on our discussions about instrument selection and instrument creation. So let's get into it. Let's go over validity. Oh boy. There we go. Validity. So in short, validity is accuracy, right? So in the last video, in the last module, we went over reliability, which was the consistency. Is it consistent, right? And so just to recap, imagine you wanted to find out your weight. You have two scales. One is very reliable. Every time you weigh yourself, it's about the same, plus or minus like a tenth of a number or something. But the other scale, one day it says you weigh 10 pounds, and the next day it says you weigh 500 pounds, and the day after you weigh 75, right? It's not reliable. Sometimes it might be accurate, but it's not reliable, right? Validity is the accuracy. So if you wanted to weigh yourself, you probably use a scale and not like a blood pressure machine. So let's revisit date night again. Remember last time we talked about how consistent would the experience be. There are some restaurants where you always have a good time. There are some restaurants where you have a good time sometimes, and then there are some places that you don't have a good time at all. Now we talk about the type of restaurant we want to go to. So imagine craving something, right? And so you're craving hamburgers. Delicious. And so you pull up some reviews, right, recommendations, and the following places show up: Ray's Pizzeria, a place called Hamburger Paradise, and China Sea. So, in short, you would give anything for this burger. Would you go to a pizza place? No, because they have pizza. They don't even have burgers. Would you go to a Chinese buffet for a burger? No. Would you go to a burger place for a burger? Probably, right? Kind of depends on the type of burgers and everything. But we can rule out the other two restaurants because they don't have the food that we want. I want a burger, so I'm going to go to a burger place. So, yeah, a lot simpler than reliability, right? It's just that we're done. And so validity and reliability, we have to have a combination of the two. And I really shouldn't say combination. I just can't think of a different word. You want both of them to be strong. Strong reliability, strong validity. Things are never perfect, right? Things are not exactly perfect. So we go for the best combination of the two. You might find an instrument that's very valid, right? That it measures exactly what you want it to measure, but it doesn't have great reliability. And then you can always find instruments that have great reliability, but they might not be pertinent to what you're trying to do. What you need to know as clinicians is that this is not a compensatory relationship. You can't be like, well, yeah, it was really reliable, but it didn't have any validity. That would be like saying, I want to measure attachment, right? Do they have secure attachment, anxious attachment? And the instrument I had, it's like 0.98, remember, very high, very reliable, but it measures like speaking proficiency, right? One does not compensate for the other. One might be very valid. This absolutely measures, it's called the Adult Attachment Scale. It measures attachment in adults, but its reliability is 0.2, right? So it's very valid, but it doesn't have any reliability. So you don't exchange one for the other. We want both to be high. And that brings us to the different combinations that you can have with this. High validity and high reliability, or strong validity and strong reliability, would be going to a restaurant that has exactly what you're craving and consistently gives good food, right? That's the best possible outcome. You can have, I'm going to jump down to this bottom one, low validity and low reliability. So this is a place that doesn't have what you want, And what it does have, it doesn't serve reliably. And then in the middle, you have low validity and high reliability. The restaurant does not have the food you want, but it consistently serves the food it has. Now, for visual learners, this might make more sense. This is what got me through this class when I was in grad school and what helped me get through the NCE with it. But before we do that, is it possible to have high validity, have something be very, very accurate, and be inconsistent? Think for a second. No. It's not possible to have high validity and low reliability. Having acceptable validity is considered a necessary component for reliability. You can't establish reliability without having accuracy. Here's what we have. So this is what got me through this portion, right? If you focus on these, if you can just kind of commit the bullseye diagram to memory, you're golden, right? You'll be able to get through any questions about reliability and validity. So looking at these, which of them has high validity and high reliability? Which has low validity and higher reliability? Which has both low validity and low reliability? A, right here, has low and low. See how the darks are everywhere? If it was reliable, they'd all be clustered together, right? And you see there's a few dots hitting the bullseye, but that might just be by chance, right? If you run a test enough times, you'll get the result you're looking for. So this is what it looks like when a test doesn't have decent validity or decent reliability. It's just scattered everywhere. You don't know what it's measuring. Is it supposed to measure whatever this thing is? Is it supposed to measure this? Is this little cluster good? We don't know. It's all over the place. B has low validity and high reliability, right? See, they're all clustered together, but not at the bullseye. So it has consistency, but not accuracy. Another way of putting it is that this thing is reliably measuring something else. So with the restaurant example, you're going to a restaurant that does not have the food you want hamburgers. Now you're over here and they have pizza, but they consistently give good pizza, right? And then C, it's hitting the mark, and it's hitting the mark consistently. So it is giving you hamburgers, and it's doing it consistently, right? And that's it. There are no other combinations. So going back to this question, is it possible to have high validity and low reliability? No, you can't. These are the only three combinations of reliability and validity. And if you're ever unsure, just remember this diagram. This is high and high. This is high reliability, low validity. And this is low and low. Real easy. So when you're going to your, if you're going to take the NCE, I'm sorry guys. If you go to take your NCE on whatever, scratch sheet of paper they give you, throw this on there real fast. And you can kind of intuit your way. High and high, low and low, high and low, right? So then when inevitably you get a question about, which of the following is an example of high reliability and low validity, you can look at this, and these are your only three options. So validity, accuracy. There are different types of validity. And so let's go over the main ones. Content validity, real easy to understand. Do the questions on this test relate or indicate what you are measuring? So think about this class in the midterm. There are going to be questions about assessment. If I asked you, list the steps to baking a cake, those aren't real good questions about assessment. If you went to take your NCE and all the questions were about like tax law, right, that would be poor content validity. But the NCE fortunately asks questions like, which of the following is a defense mechanism? What are the 3 elements needed for person-centered counseling, as explained by Carl Rogers? An example of the miracle question is which of the following, right? They all relate to counseling. And so good content validity means that there are clear questions or tasks, so they're not convoluted. They're phrased appropriately, the answers are appropriate, and they tend to be pulled from expert reviews. So someone got in touch with an expert, so maybe if I'm making a new addictions instrument, I'll call Dr. Junkie, because he's like a world-renowned addictions expert. If I want to focus on like creativity and counseling or relational cultural theory, I might call Dr. Duffy and say, what would be some good questions to ask about it, right? If I wanted to make a suicide questionnaire, I might look up, Dr. Granello at Ohio, because he's an expert on suicide. And so we look at expert reviews and make sure that the content actually matches the thing that we want to measure. Criterion validity refers to the outcome, right? We're talking about the thing we're actually measuring, and there's 2 types of criterion: predictive validity and concurrent validity. Predictive validity, and again, this is just vocabulary, predictive validity refers to how well an assessment predicts something. So, for example, the suicide probability questionnaire is designed to determine how likely a person is to attempt suicide. It tells us how someone will do. So, I think I gave this example in an earlier video about the GRE, right? The GRE originally was intended to measure how well a person would do in graduate school. It's not accurate, but that's what it was supposed to do. Concurrent validity tells us how a person is currently doing. So concurrent, current, predictive. The Beck Depression Inventory, for example, with concurrent, tells us how many depressive symptoms the person has right now, right? If I did the eating disorder interview or eating disorder questionnaire, it tells us what symptoms of disordered eating do they have, what problems with eating or body do they have right now, not how likely are they to develop an eating disorder. The Beck Depression Inventory is how many symptoms of depression do they have today, not are they likely to develop the symptoms later, right? So concurrent is how are they now. With prediction comes the issue of false and true positives and negatives. So when you hear the term like false positive and false negative, what comes to mind? Someone's thinking it. I always say that in class and everybody kind of laughs, and then there's an awkward silence, and then finally somebody says, pregnancy test. And that is correct, right? A false positive, occurs when a test result indicates that a person has something when in fact they do not. So the classic example is taking a pregnancy test and it says you're pregnant and you're not pregnant. A false negative occurs when the test result says you do not have this and they really do. So this would be the person takes the pregnancy test and it says, no, you're not pregnant, but you actually are. And then a true positive would be, it says you're pregnant and you are actually pregnant. And a true negative is you are not pregnant and you actually are not pregnant. So false positives and false negatives are an issue to be aware of when selecting any kind of predictive instrument. And it will, again, the test manuals will tell you we got a false positive 1 out of 700 times. We got a false negative once out of every 1,000 times, right? And so they put that out there. Something that was, we got a false positive 1 out of 5 times and a false negative 1 out of 10 times. Is that something that you're willing, is that inaccuracy something that you're willing to risk with your client, right? What if there was a legal issue involved? Construct validity is a more conceptual type of validity, and it deals with how well an assessment actually relates to the thing that you're measuring. So remember that our constructs are things that we're trying to measure, but we can't directly observe. And so if I want to measure depression or body positivity or counseling proficiency, I can't just look at it. So does my assessment actually relate to that? Is that the thing that it's actually measuring? So if I wanted to measure anxiety, how can I create an instrument that measures anxiety and not something else? So think about anxiety and depression. They often go hand in hand, and they have a lot of the same symptoms. Sleep disturbances, eating disturbances, crying, feelings of hopelessness, catastrophizing, all of that stuff. If I make an anxiety instrument, how can I be sure that the instrument is measuring anxiety and not depression? If I have good construct validity, it means that I'm measuring the thing that I'm intending to measure. And an aspect of that, to establish it, is called convergent validity. And convergent validity is just like it sounds. If I made a new anxiety instrument, it should give the same results as other established anxiety instruments, right? The results are convergent, right? So another example is there's the Beck Depression Inventory, and then there's the Hamilton Depression Scale. Both measure depression, and so if there's someone who has depressive symptoms, they should score high on both. And if a person does not have depressive symptoms, they should score low on both, right? So in other words, we're getting agreement via an established instrument. This is different from discriminant or divergent validity. Excuse me. And so this means that, okay, so going back a slide, I make a depression scale, the Leith Depression Scale, and it gives similar results to the Beck Depression Inventory and the Hamilton Depression Scale. And now I want to make sure it's not measuring anxiety, so I might use the Beck Anxiety Inventory or the Hamilton Anxiety Scale, and my test results should be different because I want it to measure depression and only depression and not also measure anxiety. So wrapping up, like I said, this is a much easier week to kind of give everybody some breathing room. Validity refers to accuracy, right? And there is a necessary relationship between validity and reliability. There are different types of validity, and we want each of them to be strong or high. That's going to do it for this week. I hope everyone is well. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.